In this video, I discuss sequential design of experiments for scaling up carbon capture technologies by giving an overview of the sequential design of experiments module in the FOQUS toolset. This video is a great place to start just because it acts as an introduction to sequential design of experiments for scaling up carbon capture technologies. If you're interested in the specifics of how to use the sequential design of experiments module to generate designs, I'd suggest checking out some of these other videos as well. In this video, I'll start with just a refresher on design of experiments and talk about some of the advantages of sequential design of experiments in particular, especially in that context of scaling up carbon capture technologies. There's a wide range of sequential design of experiment methodologies that are available to support multiple different objectives, and there's a robust tool set of those available in the FOQUS sequential design of experiments module. These include uniform space-filling designs, non-uniform space-filling designs, input-response space-filling designs, and robust model-based optimality designed capability as well. And so I'll talk about each of these briefly in this video. Design of experiments is a mathematical strategy for selecting input combinations at which a process is going to be run, and we're interested in collecting information about the response at those particular input combinations. This might be a computer experiment, which means we're going to compute an output, or it might be a physical experiment, which means we're physically operating a system and collecting information about the response. In either case, the range of inputs that we're interested in exploring this process over is referred to as the region of interest. And then the particular input combinations where we're actually going to run the process and generate a response to collect and study, that makes up the design. We use statistically designed experiments because they lead to really high quality data, and high quality data helps us to improve our understanding of the process under study, decision making about that process, and confidence in the decisions that we've made. Design of experiments produces the gold standard in data collection, and so that's why we use it whenever we can. Design of experiments allows us to collect data strategically, and that helps us to make better decisions. The design of experiments is a strategy for extracting as much information as we can about the system under study given a fixed budget. So this allows us to use fewer resources but still get high quality results. And design of experiments can really help us at every stage of the process to scale up technologies, thereby reducing risk throughout the entire process. From the early stages of feasibility study into exploring that input space of interest, understanding basic relationships between the inputs and the response or responses of interest. As we move into the model building, model refinement, reducing uncertainty in our model, and then optimization as we start to focus in on a region that's of maximum interest to us. Finally, the final sort of stages of our process might be confirmation, verifying the results for operational use. At each one of these steps, design of experiments can play a really useful and important role. And in particular, we are focused here on sequential design of experiments because problems are solved in stages. So it makes sense to collect data strategically in stages as well. And sequential design of experiments allows us to do that by providing a method that lets us directly incorporate the knowledge that we learned in previous stages into the next stage of the process to really strategically collect data across multiple stages of our problem-solving process. So here's a little example of what sequential design of experiments might look like in 2 dimensions. So here we're assuming our input space covers 2 different inputs, and we have a total experimental budget of 18 runs. So using sequential design of experiments, we're going to split that experimental budget up and study this process in stages. So here we might use 2 runs as just a feasibility study to make sure that the process is operating at this scale, correctly. And then we can allocate 6 of our runs from our experimental budget to exploring that full space. As part of that exploration, we might realize that that upper corner is not an area that we're interested in exploring. So that's fine. We can ignore that moving forward. We're going to do some model refinement with 5 runs, and then we'll start to focus in on the area where we believe the optimum operating conditions, or that we believe lead to optimum operating conditions. And so we can allocate 3 runs for optimization. And now we think we've found the optimum. We can allocate 2 runs to confirm that. And that gives us that budget of 18 runs where we were really able to allocate things across our 5 stages of the process. On the other hand, if we had used just one-off design, not a sequential design approach, what we're looking at on the left here shows what our design might have looked like. And so here we've just spaced out our 18 runs across the space of interest. And it's fine, but you can see that we're spending 4 of our experimental runs up in the region of the space that we later determined we weren't even interested in. And we have very few runs in the area where we really are interested, the area that leads to the optimum operating conditions. So you can just see here that by using that sequential design of experiments, we were able to use our budget of 18 runs more wisely, more strategically, and really target the information that we're getting in the process. Different problems and different stages of multi-stage problems require different strategies. And so there are a wide range of designs in the realm of design of experiments methodology to accommodate those different stages. And this allows us to really flexibly apply different methods to fit our needs. And in particular, in the sequential design of experiments module in FOQUS, we have a wide range of tools that we can implement to fit different experimental needs at different stages of the problem-solving process. One big choice that an experimenter needs to make is whether they want to use a space-filling design method or whether they want to use a model-based design method. Space-filling designs are often used when the relationship between the inputs and the responses, or the response of interest, is not well understood. And these designs also provide good prediction for predicting new results at any new location, because these designs seek to really spread the design points out throughout the space of interest. So no matter where you're trying to predict, there's a good chance that you've collected at least some data kind of close by. Model-based designs, on the other hand, are going to be used when we can specify the correct form for the model of interest to characterize the relationship between inputs and the response or responses of interest. Or very often, we use model-based designs when we believe that that relationship can be well approximated by a low-order polynomial. The sequential design of experiments module in FOQUS does support both of these approaches. And so we'll talk about both briefly in this video. We're going to start by talking about space-filling designs, and this is just a screenshot from that FOQUS tool set. But again, if you want more details about actually using the module to generate designs, check out one of the other videos. Here we're just looking at a brief sort of giving a brief idea of what the tool set looks like. Within the module, there are different methods of space-filling designs that we can choose from. So there are uniform space-filling designs, non-uniform space-filling designs, and input response space-filling designs all available. And so we're going to talk about each of these briefly today. Uniform space-filling designs essentially do exactly what they sound like they're going to do, which means that they really try to spread the design points out evenly throughout the space of interest. And these are flexibly available in the sequential design of experiments module, in the sense that whether we're designing a first phase experiment, a sequential follow-up phase with a regular or irregular region, any of that can be handled using the Sequential Design of Experiments module. The second method of space filling designs that's available in the module are non-uniform space filling designs. So these also seek to spread the design points out throughout the space of interest, but in a way that the experimenter can emphasize some regions over others. And that allows the flexibility to more deeply explore certain areas of the space while still covering the whole space. So you can see in this figure that we've covered the whole region of interest, but in the green area in the middle, we just have more design points. We're collecting more data there, and so we're emphasizing that more than the regions around the outside that are circled in blue. Within the FOQUS SDoE module, we do again have capabilities for non-uniform space filling designs, whether it's a first phase or a sequential, and we can really adjust, the experimenter can tune how much emphasis is placed on different regions. So you can see in this figure in the lower left, we've emphasized the upper right-hand corner of the design space a little bit, but as we move over to the right, there we've dialed up that knob and we're emphasizing that space even more. And so there's some flexibility to how much emphasis we want to put on that's available in the module as well. Finally, we're going to talk about the input response space filling designs. These are going to be used when there is information known about likely output values for each of the input combinations that we might consider, including in the design. And so in that way, knowing something about the output values that are likely to result, we can select design points that are likely to give us a good distribution of the output values as well as good coverage in the space of the input. So these designs really seek to balance good space filling properties in both the input and the output space. The way that this works is by really providing the experimenter with a range of potential designs that are that balance the space filling in the input and response spaces. And so this is what that range of designs looks like. In the upper left corner in purple, we have the design on one end of that spectrum, which puts all the weight on providing balance in the space of the outputs. And that means that the input space is going to be less, less covered. On the other hand, in red, at the other end of that spectrum, we have all of the weight, all of the emphasis going into providing space filling properties in the space of the inputs, which means we're not worried about providing, space filling properties in the output. So it's this input-output trade-off, and all the designs in the middle, along that spectrum, just provide different balances of that trade-off. And so the experimenter can select what balance best suits their experimental needs. We're going to shift gears now and talk briefly about the robust, optimally based design of experiments capability that's also included in the Sequential Design of Experiments module in FOQUS. This capability allows experimenters to construct designs based on empirically fit models with different model forms available, leveraged from other modules within the FOQUS toolset. And the experimenter can choose what optimality criterion they want to use for design construction with a good range provided. So whether the primary focus of the experimenter is parameter estimation, or whether the primary focus is precisely predicting a response of interest, there are optimality criteria available in the module to support both of those objectives. Again, we want to make sure that we're building a sequence that works for each experiment and slotting in the methods from the Sequential Design of Experiments toolset that supports that sequence in a strategic way. So as we move from exploring the input space, where we might want to use uniform space filling designs, towards more targeted model building and model refinement, where we might want to use, for instance, non-uniform space filling to reduce uncertainty in our model, and moving into optimization, again, emphasizing those areas of the design space that are believed to be close to the optimum. There are different design tools that can help support each of these phases. And carefully selecting those tools to support the phase is how we are able to, again, make the best use of the budget and make sure that we're strategically collecting data across each phase of our sequential problem solving process. All right, so today we've talked about advantages of the sequential design of experiment framework in this framework of scaling up technologies in terms of adding value by providing a strategic framework for collecting data to make the best use of our experimental budget, lower uncertainty and risk, increasing efficacy by increasing the confidence that we have in the results. And we've talked about how this is flexible to apply. We have a variety of strategies to support different outcomes, and the sequential design of experiments module in FOQUS provides that robust tool set to really help us find the best method for the application. Again, if you'd like to know more about how to actually use the FOQUS module to generate these different types of designs that we've talked about, please take a look at the additional videos which walks through the functionality for uniform space filling design, non-uniform space filling designs, and those input response space filling designs.